Hi, this is Steve Adubato coming to you from the campus of NJIT. That's the New Jersey Institute of Technology. Why are we here? This is, in fact, the Voice Summit, sponsored by Amazon Alexa. You've got about 2,500 folks from all over the country, programmers, people involved in something called artificial intelligence, all about voice. What does voice mean in our lives today? What could and what will voice mean in our lives tomorrow? That's what the people are here talking about at NJIT at this Voice Summit. We'll be interviewing those folks and bringing everything you've ever wanted and needed to know about voice to you right now. Janine Uzel, she is a former head of Women in Technology at GE and currently emerging market and tech consultant. You've had a fascinating career, born and raised at the Beth Israel.
In Jersey.
And then we lost you. Where'd you go? No, another hospital on the other end of the city.
It's okay.
Okay, where'd you go after that?
Still Jersey strong. So I grew up in Plainfield and went to Mount St. Mary's.
I went to Estes Catholic.
Okay,
my high school doesn't even exist anymore.
Oh, well, mine still does.
Okay,
so,
good.
I went to the Mount and then left the Mount and went to North Carolina A&T for undergrad, studied engineering. But I have not lived in New Jersey in quite a while. My family's still here, but it's been a long time.
You know, one of the things you were just telling me before we got on the air, which I want to share with our audience, the whole question of artificial intelligence and its connection to quote-unquote diversity.
Yep.
Like, so artificial intelligence, you would, in layperson's language, you define it as?
So ultimately, it's technology that we're designing to really solve tons of problems, all kinds of tasks that we're doing. But the message that I talk about, as I'm not a coder, haven't programmed in many years, what I'm focused on is that the technology is subject to the software. The software is subject.
People come here sooner or later.
The person that's sitting there programming it, and if you want to have a full user experience and really touch the global world that we know that's going to be the end users of this technology, we've got to have diversity across the board with who's programming, diversity in our teams, who's designing the products. We just got to make sure that we have an audience, or that we're touching a broad audience by having a broad audience of teams.
Has that been a challenge?
That is a huge challenge.
Because?
Well, it's certainly not because you can't find diversity in the programs. We're going to school, we're graduating women and diverse cultures, but, you know, I think it's just diversity as a practice is not a norm. And
back up. Diversity as a practice is not a norm?
It's not a norm.
Everyone talks about it.
It's not what we think about truly every day. It's not. It is not. Even for someone like me, I may think and be comfortable in my audience, in my world, and so I could maybe just think about women in tech or women from New Jersey or African-American women. It is not as much of a practice as we would think, and so it's got to become the standard of how we work.
It affects quality,
depending on it.
See, what's fascinating to me is that people say, oh, diversity is a really good thing, as if somehow by itself, just the goal of diversity is nice. That's not what this is. This is, if you don't have a diverse group of people involved in artificial intelligence and engaged in the software, that means the software and the ultimate artificial intelligence is like this, not like this. Right. Am I oversimplifying?
No, you're absolutely right. And there are some instances where it's intentional. There are definitely instances where racism, bias has intentionally been put into code. And then there are a majority of instances where it's not intentional.
Do people know it when they're doing it?
Sometimes the practice can be that programming can be the result of racism or even influence racism. But the majority of the time, it's not intentional. It's not meant to cause harm. It's just that when you don't have a broader way of thinking, and I'm talking about age, culture, where you grew up, your sexual orientation, all of that matters if we're going to have a full-blown product.
Give us a concrete, relevant, understandable example of what could happen if the coding, if the software, if all that in voice is done by a group of a homogeneous population, very narrow, whatever, and not a truly diverse. population. Give us a concrete example.
So an example is, you're having this conversation with Alexa, and she doesn't understand the dialect or the tone of your voice. She doesn't understand words that you might use that mean one thing and mean something else in a different culture. She might not know the difference between how to make kale, sauteed kale, or collard greens. What's the recipe of what I was brought up on? Or Alexa, how do you make cornbread? Maybe she's going to teach me how to make a muffin because she doesn't understand that.
Let's stay on diversity. In my family, growing up, Alexa, what's the best way to serve scungili?
See?
What's going to happen?
What's a scunge or a gili?
So Alexa may have, depending upon who is involved in the programming, may have potentially a narrow ability to communicate, and you go outside that?
Absolutely.
But if the people come from all different walks of life, it increases the chances that conversation, if you will.
And it creates an inclusion and a fairness for everyone. Everyone wants to be able to find themselves, and if AI is happening, we can't stop it, right? It's going to happen.
Artificial intelligence.
So it's our responsibility as technologists, as programmers, as people that are running businesses or leading teams to ensure that the best possible product is what is represented. That's our job. It's our responsibility. We have to make sure that we are being a reflection of the world that we want to serve or that we want to sell to. And we alone can't do that. I can't do that myself. I can't even speak for every person that's a part of my culture.
Yeah, but you can also, but what you are doing is saying, hey, wait a minute, let's make sure we do everything possible to have all those voices heard. My question is, how responsive have most people in the voice community been to the conversation as a consultant you are driving right now?
Very like,
hey, I never thought about that.
I didn't think about that. Or, we know it's there, what do we do? And some of the opportunities are very tactical. Like if you're talking to a business, it's very tactical. Where do you recruit? Where are you getting your population of the future employees? Millennials and the folks that we're hiring now, they're in very different places, studying in different locations.
That's right.
So what are you willing to do to stretch?
Sure.
Are you training the workforce that you currently have to be the managers that need to be in place for the diverse teams that you're hiring? Right? So that they want to stay. What kind of work are we giving them to do? What are we letting them design? So all of these things, we're finding that people they're very interested and they want to know how to do it better. Because you know what? If you don't, the bottom line is impacted.
If the product is suffering, and
then we're not going to sell it.
Right.
And don't we want to make money? Isn't that why we're here? We're here to deliver a great product
and
get paid for it.
You're good.
Oh, thank you.
You made my job easy.
You're good too.
You still have the coolest glasses.
Thank you.
I've been doing this for 25 years. Not only great glasses, but great conversation.
It's good to talk to you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll be right back right after this.
One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation, celebrating over 25 years of broadcast excellence. Funding for this special edition of One-on-One with Steve Adubato at NJIT has been provided by NJIT, RWJ Barnabas Health, Delta Dental of New Jersey, Valley National Bank, Verizon, the law firm of Gibbons PC, and by Adler Aphasia Center. Transportation provided by Airbrook Limousine, serving the metropolitan New York, New Jersey area.